Jim Guerrera, SCN Team Talk. With me today is SCN Practice Leader Search Consultant Greg Arneson. Greg, how are you today?
Doing well. Very glad to be here today.
Super. Greg, we'd like to learn about the story of your life, and wanted to start out with just seeing if you could take us all the way back to the beginning. You know, where are you from originally?
Yeah, no, happy to share it. I was born and raised in my whole life and my whole adolescence in Janesville, Wisconsin, about 45 minutes south of Madison. And I think we lived in 3 houses over the course of the 18 years, all in Janesville.
So, does that qualify as a cheesehead, or is
I think so. Yeah, no, it's Packers is a religion in Wisconsin. There's no doubt about that. So, 100%.
So you grew up in Janesville. So what did you do after high school?
So yeah, after high school, I immediately went into the United States Marine Corps. I served 4 years on active duty. Had a couple deployments to Iraq. I lived in Japan for a while. Stationed in Camp Pendleton as my primary duty station. And then after that, I got out of the Marine Corps, or off of active duty, I should say, and served another 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserves in Madison, Wisconsin, and worked for a beverage distributor for a short time, and then ended up working for the Department of Veterans Affairs as an employment, helping homeless veterans find employment before I ended up here at SCN now for the last 8+ years.
That's interesting. So let's go back. You grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, just a Midwestern town, and
Surrounded by cornfields.
surrounded by cornfields. I imagine that many of your classmates went on to college, but you chose a path of going right into the Marines, the Marine Corps. What precipitated that decision?
Yeah, no, it's majority of my friends went into college. Actually, I have a close buddy that went to the Army after he finished college, so he made the decision later on. But for me, it was just it was kind of an interesting time. It was right after the invasion of Iraq in 2003, I was in Iraq in October of 2004, so it was the timing was interesting, but for me it was something where I didn't have a clear path as to what I wanted to major in college and other things. So a buddy of mine said, "Hey, come talk to the recruiter with me." And my best friend since childhood, we're 2 weeks apart in age. We ended up joining the Marine Corps together, and kind of the rest is history.
What was it like going into the Marines? I mean, what do you do from day one? Where do you start?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a culture shock. I think you can look at any video of boot camp and recognize that a little bit. But it's a 13-week boot camp in San Diego, in MCRD San Diego. So did that, and then that was really it's very transformational. You know, the Marine Corps does a really good job at breaking down your old bad habits and building you up into a United States Marine. And so I did that. Went on to the School of Infantry, which I forget the exact amount, 2 or 3 months at the School of Infantry, where I learned how to be an infantry rifleman. And from there, went to a 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, where I was an infantryman for 4 years. And my first deployment there was in Iraq, so I graduated School of Infantry in I believe it was September or October, and we were heading to Iraq in I believe it was January or February. It was right away. So after that.
That's unbelievable. So take me back to boot camp. You said it was 13 weeks?
That's correct, 13 weeks.
What does one do when they go to boot camp? Is it like the movie Stripes where they take your head and they shave it right away?
It is, and it's probably more like Full Metal Jacket, actually. No, it is. They go there and you completely, you really lose your identity for the first portion of that, and intentionally so, right? To break you down and build you back up, and they do a phenomenal job. But then you get built back up into, I guess you could say, the new version of you, and as a Marine, and that's an identity and a badge of honor that I get to carry with me for the rest of my life. So it started there.
So, what did they do to break you down? What are some of the things that happen during that process?
Well, it's so you live as a community, right? It's everyone. You have no privacy. Everybody lives in a squad bay with bunk beds. There's probably 100 guys living in that one room. You do everything at the same time. You eat, you get your hygiene, your everything is done. You have to have a perfect bed. You have 30 seconds to eat in the chow hall. It's very
30 seconds.
sometimes it's 30 seconds. And then it's constant training, constant mental and physical. But really the mental is there to really just keep you going constantly.
What were some of the training things that they did with you? And then what was your day like? What would an average day be like in boot camp?
So boot camp was, it's a lot of learning, right? The Marine Corps does a really good job of, every Marine rifleman is what, one of the things the Marine Corps is famous for, and we're all proud of. But beyond that, the Marine Corps does a lot of history and education on the Marine Corps, the tradition, the heritage of the Marine Corps. So there's time spent learning, the core values, the famous battles, the nomenclatures of the weapon systems, the basic tactics and stuff. Boot camp's pretty basic. You don't get into a lot of the details, but it's really about the basics, right? How to wear your boots, how to wear your blouse, how to put your rank insignia on, how to be polished at all times. The proper haircut, how to just live that kind of style. So it's hard to say. So a basic day would be wake up, you have PT in the morning, physical training in the morning, and then you'd have probably some knowledge training. You do one of the things the Marine Corps does that's as famous is the drill, a close order drill, which is on a parade deck in the uniformed lines of troops doing weapons movements and facing movements and marching and on the parade deck. And so that's a lot of focuses on that, which inherently teaches extreme amounts of discipline and cooperation in a group.
So what were some of the physical training things that you had to do in boot camp?
So the basic physical standard for every Marine is you have to do a 3-mile run. A perfect score would be under 18 minutes. 20 pull-ups would be a perfect score, and then 100 crunches in under a minute. And so that is the ideal that everyone trains for. So a lot of time is spent running, whether that be in athletic shorts and in a pair of sneakers, or in what we call boots and utes, where you're literally wearing your combat boots and your camouflage pants, your utility pants, and running that way. And then there's an obstacle course. There's it's not hazing. It's incentivized training, which could be any form of a number of things rolling around in the sand of sorts. But there's a lot of running, a lot of pull-ups, a lot of crunches, and then the obstacle course and other. There was other fun things. Confidence course where there's jousting, gladiator style jousting. I remember doing that in boot camp. There's the confidence course where there's a famous scene, I think it's in Full Metal Jacket, where they're climbing the ladder that's 10 stories tall, however tall it is, and you're doing that. We're doing some basic rappelling at that level.
Wow.
And things of that nature.
Adventure camp.
A little bit, yeah. No, it's a good summer camp.
So when you got out of boot camp, then where did you go?
School of Infantry. So my MOS, or military occupational specialty, was to be an infantryman. So it's actually, that's a funny story in itself, is that when I went to sign up for the Marine Corps, my intention was to be an air traffic controlman, and I didn't take the test quite as seriously as I should have, and so I had the option to retake the test a month later, or there was a spot open to be an infantryman. And my parents weren't aware of the decision I made at the time, but I said, no, I'm gonna go infantry, and so they weren't exactly fond of that. And it's even funnier because I come from a very my family has a very rich history in the military. My dad and all of his brothers, my grandpa and his brothers, all served in various branches, but two or three of them were all in air traffic control. And so that would have been the logical sense. My uncle ran the tower at O'Hare, my grandpa ran a tower locally, and so there was this little bit of this path pay for me that I completely went away from and ended up going infantry. So then I ended up at the School of Infantry, is where I went after boot camp. And so that's, I believe it's 8 or 12 weeks. I forget the exact amount of time that I spent there. But that's all about becoming an infantryman. So everyone's a rifleman, but the infantry takes everything a bit further. And that's our job, is to be patrolling, shooting, moving, observing, but in the field, so that training often consisted of, going out on Monday and coming back on Friday, and you're sleeping in a sleeping bag under the stars for 4 nights, learning. At that point, learning how to use the various weapon systems, whether it just be a basic rifle or a machine gun or different things like that. So it was an interesting and formidable time.
That's pretty intense. And this was called Infantry
School of Infantry.
School of Infantry.
SOI is what it goes by.
So the School of Infantry sounds pretty intense, obviously, and it's learning your role. It's a true training phase of your development. What did you do once you graduated the School of Infantry?
So from the School of Infantry, I went to my first unit designation, or my first duty station, and that was with Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. And I want to say we arrived in October of 2003 was when I got there. And from there, we went on and jumped right into pre-deployment training. So when I joined the unit, they were already in a workup training. We call it a 6-month workup. It's the advanced training before deployment. So I got there in October, and within a day, I knew I'd be heading to Iraq in a very short amount of time. So
yeah, so we were in the Iraq War when you joined the Marines,
That's
which
correct.
is telling. So you had a pretty good vision that you were going to be in that war.
Absolutely. I remember as a senior in high school, this was during the initial invasion for the most part, from Kuwait up into Baghdad, watching some of that footage on TV. And I had already enlisted in the Marine Corps at that point in time. So I was in what they call the delayed entry program. So I enlisted, it was at the end of my junior year or the beginning of my senior year, I forget exactly when. But so I knew for a good chunk of time before graduating that I was heading to the Marine Corps. And so I'd be watching this footage just knowing that I would eventually have the opportunity to go get some myself. So
Wow, that's awesome. So you then fulfilled your prophecy here because you ended up being shipped to Iraq.
that's right. So School of Infantry, it got to my duty station 2-4 in October, and I forget exactly what day we left, but I think it was around February. We headed over to Iraq, to Ramadi, Iraq.
So you went over in February. What was that like, being deployed?
At that time, I was 19 years old, I think I turned 19 in Iraq actually, it was, you're young, you're a little dumb, you're a little ignorant to certain things, you're full of energy, and fear is probably a little bit lower at that point in time, but it was, I'll never forget my first night in country. We were in base, kind of figuring everything out. It was dark by the time we got there into they called it combat outpost, so where we were actually ultimately stationed. We spent about a month in Kuwait before we got into Iraq. But that first night there was machine gun fire going off overhead, and we were all kind of just popping out of the rooms that we were staying, just seeing what was going on. And then, that was kind of our indoctrination, and from there things escalated quite quickly.
What do you mean by that? Like there was machine gun fire overhead. Is that literally overhead, or is it just meaning, is that a term that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So our base was the combat outpost. Was the name of our little base, which was on the eastern edge of Ramadi in Al Anbar province, and we I forget what it used to be, but it was a compound of sorts, and we had some rooms there. But there was the guard towers essentially built up around, and so one of those posts, I believe, was shooting back at something that had shot at them. So
Near your
in the facility, yeah. So somebody had taken a pop shot or two at the guard post, and so that machine gun was returning fire.
So the enemies were right outside of your base.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
At night,
Right.
trying to attack your guard post.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you were defending your troops were defending the base.
Yeah. I mean, so
That was day one.
day one, and fast forward.
And how did you? Well, I'm going to interrupt you. How
Yeah,
did
yeah.
you fly in then? How does this work?
So we didn't fly it. So this is interesting. So we flew into Kuwait, and we were at Camp Victory in Kuwait, which is a big staging base in Kuwait at the time, and so we were there for probably 3 or 4 weeks before we actually moved into Iraq. But we rode on trucks. Well, no, we did fly into part of it. We flew into one of the air bases in Iraq, and then convoyed into our outpost in Ramadi. So we were in 7-ton pickup trucks, so these big, monster truck looking pickup trucks, essentially the big beds. You fit 18, 20 guys in the back or so, and we rode for, it was 2 or 3 hours from the air base to get to the base.
So you fly into a staging base, which is safe,
Right.
and then from there you go through.
Fly to forward air base in Iraq, which is still fairly safe, but they're getting mortared and things like that at this air base. But it's big, and then from there,
You drive into the line of fire.
to the
Really,
outpost. That's right.
that's incredible. So once you're in the base, then it becomes real that you're in a war when you hear the live machine guns. So what did you do then the next day? What was day 2 like?
I don't remember specifically. I guess let's say day 2, but instantly we were starting to do patrols. Going out in probably 12-man to 30-man size elements, and so that's a squad or a platoon size element, and patrolling the streets, doing. There was what we called SASO operations at the time, so security and stability operations for the local area there in Ramadi. And we did some humanitarian efforts, handing out school supplies, soccer balls, things like that. And it was, the whole goal was to really try and stabilize the region. What was our mission, and right around. Well, at some point during this time, and my dates might be a little bit off here, but so you may remember the initial push into Fallujah. We were there kind of in parallel to that time, and things escalated in Ramadi as they fled Fallujah. They came to Ramadi, and we had some pretty serious engagements for a while there.
Wow. So that's interesting that you tried to stabilize the region with school supplies and trying to help the locals. But you've shared with me before that you also had some periods of time here where things escalated. Can you share some of that history?
Yeah, no. So when we were in Ramadi during this time of, as we would consider it, the first Battle of Ramadi, there's kind of 2 that are rather famous at this point, or well known. I guess not famous, but well known. And April 6th is a day that is forever ingrained in all of our minds. We lost 11 guys that one day, in a really big, really 3-day full-on battle. In my company at the time, I think it was some of the fiercest fighting that we had seen as a U.S. force since Vietnam, and there was a lot of crazy times during that. We had almost 30 individuals that we lost KIA from our battalion. From our company, we had almost half of us, myself included, that had gotten wounded and had Purple Hearts, and so it was serious times. It was real stuff going on.
So April 6th, that obviously is a day that you'll never forget. what happened? Where was the battle? Where were you?
In the streets, in the fields of Ramadi. So we had a couple of ambushes set up. The enemy had done some well-coordinated stuff. We had patrolled many of those routes regularly, and that day they ambushed a vehicle. They were ready, and so they took out a whole vehicle with everybody in it, and we.
Were you in that vehicle?
I was not. Yeah, I was supposed to be, but at the last minute, my buddy Kyle, who was driving, we switched out for some reason. I don't recall why, but it very well could have been me. But for whatever reason, we got switched on our tasks that day, and I was pulled to do something else. I don't recall specifically what.
That's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
So that day could have been worse for you.
Oh,
It was still
absolutely.
awful. So you're patrolling the streets, and then they ambushed, and then your company returned fire.
Yeah, all over the place. I mean, there was multiple battles going on.
Live firefights.
That was a regular occurrence. So, but in this particular, the April 6th time frame, it was probably the most sustained and the most significant
Damage.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So how did that day end?
It didn't. It lasted into 3 more days. I mean, it was really, we came, it did end at some point, and we regrouped a little bit at the base, but then, I mean, that specific conflict lasted for, 3+ sustained days of just continuous,
Back and forth.
back and forth. And
All day, all night.
For the most part. I mean, yeah, there's lulls here, there's lulls there, but, yeah, for the most part, it was a pretty sustained period. That we
So
went through.
your company was on one side, and the enemy was on the other side.
Well, I mean, it's not that simple, right? That's kind of a nice way to think about it. That's really more of a conventional type of war, though. I mean, this is guerrilla warfare. So, they're around a corner, they're in a house, they're blending in with the local populace. There is no uniform that you're fighting, right?
Very difficult.
You're waiting to get shot at first before you can return fire. There's a lot of different complexities to that style of warfare, and we've seen that. It's by no means am I unique or my company unique. That was one of the biggest challenges of both the war in Iraq and in Afghanistan. It continues to be is in over time we learned much better as a military how to fight that counterinsurgency.
Wow. So began on April 6th, lasted a few days, and then you came out okay.
Yeah.
And then you also had another experience while you were over there that you did suffer a terrific injury, and you mentioned the Purple Heart. I mean, the Purple Heart is one of the most incredible awards that can be bestowed on anybody that's an American citizen, and you have one. It enables you to be buried someday at Arlington National Cemetery, which is incredible. And it also signifies the ultimate service to our country, going to battle and then being injured while in the act of war and on behalf of the United States. Can you speak to the incident where you received your Purple Heart?
Yeah, sure. And first, so I mean, the Purple Heart is it is obviously signifying being wounded in combat, which is there's definitely something to be said about that. But I have to acknowledge that there's other gentlemen that I served with, Marines that had received other honors, Bronze Stars and Silver Stars and things of that nature for their valor, which is definitely worth mentioning, I think.
And of course, the veterans that were lost, of course.
Absolutely.
That's those we remember those. Can't even put into words, really.
Yeah.
But tell us about that day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it was May 29th, and we were doing what they call QRF, Quick Reaction Force. So it was our job to support the active guys that were out on active patrols that day in the area of operations. And so part of our duties that day is we were dropping off, inserting and extracting the platoon. So just with Humvees. And so I was driving a Humvee. And at this time, we didn't really have these up armored or massive looking Humvees. It was basically what they call a high back Humvee, which is essentially the Humvee's version of a pickup truck. Where it's got a driver's seat and a passenger seat, and then a bed with bench seats in the back, right? So it fit 10 people or so in total. But what we had done, because we lacked armor at this point in time, is we had welded on some sheet metal doors. We had put sandbags on the bottom of the back of the Humvee and welded on sheet metal on the back where we could, to make it as safe as possible given the circumstances. So. In this time too is when we're in Iraq is when IEDs, improvised explosive devices, are really starting to become very prevalent, right? And there's different types. At this point, there's remote detonated. You trip a wire. You can all kinds of different things that could happen. And so we were vigilant of that and becoming even more vigilant of that because the prevalence of that did nothing but rise over our time there. And so we had. Gone and dropped the platoon off in that morning. We're going back out to pick these guys up. Had picked them up. I was the fourth vehicle in a four-vehicle convoy. Turned a corner, and there was a car parked on the side of the road, which turned out to be a VB IED, or a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, so a car bomb, essentially. And as we were passing by, that went off. And I don't remember much of that. I was unconscious for a couple of days, but I was told that the fireball from that was about 6 lanes wide of a highway. If you think about that. So,
my goodness.
We lost 4 guys that day, unfortunately.
In the explosion.
In that one accident, or explosion, and I'm one of 2 guys, thankfully, that has, everything intact. So I know another gentleman lost his leg. The guy next to me, he had lost his spleen, I believe, and I don't remember all the specifics, but there was 4 gentlemen that paid the ultimate sacrifice that day in that accident.
That's unbelievable.
So,
I mean, the fact that you came out of that and the fact that you lived to talk about it is incredible in and of itself, and the fact that you're also fully intact is just another thing to be thankful for, obviously.
undoubtedly, yeah.
So after the accident, you were sent where?
To a MASH unit in Fallujah, so field hospital at one of the main bases in Fallujah. So I was there, and finally came to, I think it was 2 days or so, roughly, that I was out of it. And at this point in time, as a military, we didn't know a ton about traumatic brain injury, and so I recovered there for about 10 days, and after that I went back to Ramadi. I hopped on a bird, helicopter, and was flown back to Ramadi. I didn't have anything with me at this time, mind you, so all my clothes had been cut off when I was medevaced out and attending to my wounds. In addition to being unconscious, I had some shrapnel wounds in my arm and in my face. Nothing too crazy. There's no metal in my body still, but there was for a little bit there.
Sure.
And so I was flown there, and so I was given some ill-fitting camouflage utilities to wear back. I had a pair of tennis shoes, I believe, and no weapon or protective vest. So, which for the helicopter ride was one thing, but then I got to Ramadi, to one of the larger bases there, one of the headquarter bases, and had to jump a convoy back to our combat outpost. And I was given a flak jacket, or the vest to wear, and a helmet. But then, my rifle and stuff wasn't with me. That was left with my unit. So I remember, I believe it was a cook or somebody of that nature on the supply run that I was able to hold the pistol. So that made me feel a little bit more secure. But that was a very interesting ride back after having just on that very same road been blown up. It was called MSR Michigan, Main Supply Route Michigan. And having to take that same road back to the outpost was
What did you feel during that drive?
it was everything. It was all emotions, right? A little bit of fear, angst, relief to be back, with the guys, on my way back to the guys, hoping that I would get back to the guys,
Yeah.
It was a flood of different types of emotions, but it was one of those situations where you just had to push that down and be vigilant and be back at it. So that's what we did.
Unbelievable. So you went back into the front line, and then you got re-engaged with your unit? Is
That's
that
right.
correct?
So yeah, after about it was, I think, 10 or 12 days total. I was back with my guys, and it was interesting. Even there, so I'd gotten back, and they had actually had all my stuff laid out on my rack. They were inventorying my gear to send back to my parents because no one really had expected me to come back. But thankfully I was able to. So it was.
That's unbelievable.
It was a good reunion.
What was it like seeing your squad?
It goes back to normal instantly. It was a good, hey man, we're back, glad to see you, and then it's just back to
Yeah.
joking and getting after it.
So they were asking you for that money that you owed them.
Yeah, something like that. Probably. Yeah.
Well, that's an unbelievable story. It's surreal, and it's incredible that you're able to share that. So then, how much longer did you stay in Iraq?
We left Iraq in I believe it was October of 2004.
Wow, so you were there from April through October.
No, I think February through October.
February through October.
Yeah, roughly 8 months total.
So 2004. What a year.
Yeah. It was a ride, that's for sure.
So then, after Iraq, you were deployed where?
So I came back home. We were stationed at Camp Pendleton, and we were there for probably 6 months to a year. I don't remember the exact time, but we did another workup, and then I was stationed. We went on deployment again to this time Okinawa, Japan, and so we were part of the 31st MU, or Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is the Marine Corps has these all across. Well, not all across, but there's always one or two MUs out in the ocean. So we were on Navy ships and out based in Okinawa, and then out patrolling, visiting different ports via the Navy vessels. So
incredible.
So we did some cool things there, trained in the jungle, things like that, and
unbelievable.
Spent 9 months or 8 or 9 months there.
Traveled the world. So then, when you got out of the Marines, what did you do?
Well, so I went to Japan, and then came back to Camp Pendleton again, and then went back to Iraq again. So I ended up back in Ramadi a second time, which was so we went. That was a really interesting experience because I ended up at the exact same base that I was the first time, which really doesn't happen a lot.
Oh my goodness!
And so that was a bit of talking about having to have mental strength and
Sure.
to get through that and to just be ready, and we all did that fabulously, and ended up in Ramadi again, and then also in Arupa, Upper Iraq, near the Syrian border, where we did that, and so we were in combat there again, and so that was actually at the tail end of the second battle of Ramadi, which is also a well-known battle in duration in 2006.
Wow.
And so I did that, and then when in that deployment I had to get extended on. So our deployment we were again another part of another MU expeditionary unit that we were out of San Diego. So we were traveling on ship around the world that time, and we were in Kuwait. We were going to either do training in Kuwait or we were going to push up. And this was, if you recall back at that point in time, the surge of forces into Iraq was kind of how they put it in the news. And so we were in Kuwait and said, all right, boys, you're going north. And so we ended up back in Iraq, and our deployment got extended a few times, where we thought we were supposed to come home at a certain time, and it didn't. It was delayed, and we had to stay longer to fulfill the mission.
Wow.
And so as a result of that, I actually had to extend my enlistment in the Marine Corps just so I could get home and get out of the Marine Corps.
Oh my goodness.
So I was originally scheduled to get out of the Marine Corps in July. I extended a month and got out in August because we didn't get back until middle of July. I believe it was. So,
Sure, yeah,
which made for a very interesting transition period because the Marine Corps tries to give you a good transition, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I literally got back. We went on a leave period, and I came back and I turned my stuff, and then I was out of the Marine Corps. So it was, just like a light switch, and then it's hey, now what, right? And so
what a change.
it was night and day, and so
What did you change? What a change. So then, what was your first career position out of the Marine Corps?
yeah, so I moved back to Janesville, Wisconsin, and I was still on what they call terminal leave. I had some time left that I was burning at the end of my enlistment, where I was able to leave a couple weeks early and use vacation time essentially. So my first gig while I looked for schooling or a job or a career path was actually just working in a warehouse for a summer, driving a forklift, shipping and receiving type stuff for boat motors and ATV parts. So,
yeah, it's funny. You had to get reacclimated to society.
Just something, right?
Yeah, you had to get back into the groove.
And for me, there's guys that come out and they just use that leave time and kind of do nothing and live, the bachelor life or the married life or whatever it might be.
Sure.
But for me, it was important to keep going. I had to be doing something, right? It was to let myself sit idle like that. I don't think that would have been the right move. It's have one foot in front of the other, always going forward. And so, that I knew that wasn't my career path, but it was something to keep me in a professional, engagement, working, doing something as I looked for my next step. And so I did that for a while, and then ultimately got hired at a beverage distributor as a warehouse supervisor, where I worked for a couple of years managing the second and third shift, and then went to I worked my way from that into merchandising and into sales, and so that was my first opportunity into sales, and from there I ended up getting a job with the Department of Veterans Affairs as an employment specialist, where I was ultimately helping homeless veterans find employment in the community. So it really came full circle for me, where I was able to build my civilian skill set and then apply that to the veteran community, which is obviously very near and dear to my heart. So
that's an incredible transition. You got into the recruiting in the veteran world, and what did you do in that particular role?
Yeah, so it was did what we call job development. So it's kind of the opposite end of the table of what I'm doing now, but working on behalf of the individual veteran to try and find them employment, fulfilling employment that was able to help get them off their feet and back into the workforce. So I worked in parallel with the social work team and in the psychology team at the Veterans Hospital, and helped with finding these guys employment. And so working and telling the veteran story to employers, why these guys get fit, and then working alongside the veterans to help keep them accountable in their new employment journeys.
What an incredible story. So that transitioned and led to your current position as a search consultant.
That's right.
You were doing the professional career search for the veterans, and the mirror of that is obviously working with companies to find people. And then that's when you and I met each other and your search consulting career began.
That's right, it is. And one thing to add too to that journey that I think is really important for me was when I got off of active duty, like I mentioned there, I ended up only being out of the Marine Corps for a couple of months, and I missed it. There's parts of it that I missed, but I had a really great opportunity to join the Marine Corps Reserve, near my hometown, and so I spent 6 years there, and really, really did great things for me, learning how to transition and be a Marine and a civilian, right? And I had a really great group of guys that I was with there that are great professionals, owning small businesses, lawyers and other things, where it was a great place for me in my early, those early 20 years to see how I can take what I've done, use those characteristics and apply them to my civilian life now. And so that did lead me here. And actually, when you remember when we first met, I was still in the reserve unit there in Wisconsin and had just moved here to Michigan. And you were kind enough to let me still, travel back and forth for those drill weekends.
So it was a transition. You're leaving the veteran work and coming to the corporate world,
right.
Essentially, or the search consulting world.
Absolutely.
So there was a lot of transition. But I remember when you and I spoke originally, because you didn't have a lot of experience in our line of work or even in the business-to-business world. And this is where that Marine background and the inner Greg Arneson presented itself. I said, well, we've got two opportunities. One opportunity would be we've got an existing piece of business, and then you would just kind of come in and manage it, and some things would be handed over to you. Or we've got this greenfield opportunity where we really don't have a ton of traction. We've got a little bit of knowledge, but essentially you would have to build this up from the ground up, and then you would own it, and then it would be your practice to manage and grow and develop. And without hesitation, you said, I want that one. I want the harder greenfield one where I can develop and build it. And so what happened is that the first year or two were very challenging because we're asking a lot of different things and asking you to do a lot of different things. But you met the challenge head on and have had some incredible success. And now you're one of the, if not the leading automation recruiter in the United States in automation technologies. And it's incredible what you have developed in that 8-year run. But from your perspective, what do you think the key is to the clients? Why would they want to work with you, and why would candidates want to work with you? What are things that you do that separates you from the pack?
That's a great question. I think one of the things is just what you mentioned. Actually, is that ingraining and indoctrination of the industry, just by the sheer need to understand to succeed. And so from the very first year of just immersing myself, not just in the practice of search consulting, but in the automated technology realm, automation and power and electrical and material handling. You go down that whole list of the area that we focus in, but really having a deep understanding of the industry, and more than that, the desire to win on behalf of our clients, right? The desire to win with talent and getting the right people in the right places, in knowing how to do that because we're so in tune with what our clients are looking for. So, the attention to detail that I've learned throughout my life, from the time in the military being applied now, the ability to take on those hard things and the challenges that are not always easy in some of these searches or trying to find the thing, but having that perseverance and resilience to see the job done the right way. I think it's a big thing. There's a lot of people in the industry or in any industry that will look for the easy path, and looking to do the easy work only gets you so far. So we've learned both by education of the industry and by just doing the work that most people aren't willing to do, that we can get the best results.
I think that's it, right? And that's the Marine resurfacing again in your approach. It's doing things that people are not willing or able to do. And I can speak to that because I know that on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, you're engaging in your business. I mean, you're planning, you're researching, you're reaching out to people, you are organizing your master plan that will enable you to reach high efficiency. You get up early during the week, you're very regimented, very disciplined, you stay with it all day, all night, and you take a very methodical approach, a very structured approach to operating at a very high level. It's like a CEO approach, if you will, to managing your business. And what I've seen is that it results in terrific service for our clients, most importantly, and that's why they keep coming back to you. I think it's phenomenal what you've done. What are some things that you can talk about in terms of the industry and what you see, and then what are some of the things that you want to do to help our clients get better service in the days to come?
Well, it's an exciting time. I think for manufacturing in general, automation in particular is really rolling forward, and so I'm excited to just keep doing what we're doing, and growing our business with excellent service, and helping our clients grow in this accelerated time frame.
I know that you will. Thanks for joining me. This is Jim Guerrero with SCN Team Talk.